The glass atrium of the Thorn Plaza didn't just go quiet, it went sterile. It was the kind of silence that precedes a controlled demolition. I was standing directly beneath the company logo, a sleek, silver predatory bird, when Marcus Thorn folded his notes. He didn't look at me. He looked past me, as if I had already become part of the architecture. There was no preamble, no private office warning, just a clean surgical strike delivered in front of every department head and analyst I had mentored for 2 decades, on the massive LED screen behind him. The quarterly summary glared in high definition. A $50 million deficit was rendered in a shade of red that looked uncomfortably like blood. Below the number, in neat corporate font, was my name, Marianne Crowley, VP of Operations. The implication didn't just land, it cratered. I felt the air displacement before I heard the footsteps. HR moved in on my left. A silent shadow. Security tightened the perimeter on my right. They weren't there to protect the building. They were there to escort a ghost. Marcus finally met my eyes. He didn't raise his voice. Marcus Thorn was a man who used silence as a whetstone. He smiled. The same practiced predatory curve of the lips he used for hostile takeovers. "Marianne, your legacy here is settled," he said, his voice carrying effortlessly through the atrium. "In fact, I think I'll hang your portrait in this very hallway. A permanent reminder to the firm of what happens when we let sentimentality mask incompetence. The humiliation was a physical weight. I felt the collective gaze of 200 people turn into a wall of glass. I was 46 years old. I had given this company my youth, my marriage, and my eyesight. In 60 seconds, they had reduced it all to a cautionary tale. I didn't beg. I didn't defend the numbers I knew he had doctored. To speak would be to give him the satisfaction of a struggle. Instead, I nodded a single, sharp tilt of the chin and turned toward the exit. The badge reader didn't even try to process my ID. It flashed a defiant, jagged red, access denied. That's when the haptic buzz of my phone vibrated against my thigh. It wasn't a notification. It was a warning. I pulled the device from my pocket as the security guard tapped his own master key to let me out of my own building. An unknown number, 1 line of text, urgent. A civil arrest warrant for evidence tampering was signed 10 minutes ago. CPD is being dispatched to your home address. Do not go back. The heavy glass doors swung open. The humid Chicago heat hit me like a blow to the chest, a violent contrast to the air-conditioned tomb I had just left. Behind me, I heard the muffled sound of a PowerPoint transition. Someone laughed at a joke Marcus made. The machinery of the Thorn Group didn't even stutter. I stood on the sidewalk of Michigan Avenue, the sun glinting off the black SUV parked illegally at the curb. Losing my career was the distraction. The warrant was the execution. If they were moving this fast to erase me, it wasn't because I had failed. It was because I was the only one left who knew how the engine actually worked. And I still had the keys in my pocket. The badge reader didn't just reject me, it mocked me. That jagged red blink was the heartbeat of a system that had already forgotten my name. The security guard, a man whose wedding I had contributed to 3 years ago, wouldn't meet my eyes. His hand hovered over his radio. A silent threat. I was no longer a vice president. I was a breach in the perimeter. Before I even reached the elevator, my phone shuddered in my palm. Email access terminated. Cloud credentials revoked. Remote wipe initiated. The screen flickered, then died. When it flickered back to life, it was a blank, glowing slab of glass. 20 years of architecture, strategy, and late-night breakthroughs had been reduced to a factory reset in the time it took me to exhale. In the parking garage, the silence was heavy. I tossed the company laptop into the trunk. It was dead weight now. A gray plastic tombstone for a career that had ended 10 minutes ago. The drive home was a blur of Chicago gray. I kept my hands at 10 and 2, my breathing shallow, watching the rearview mirror. When I turned onto my street, the air in the car turned cold. A black SUV sat idling across from my driveway. No plates, dark tint. The engine emitted a low, predatory hum that vibrated in my teeth. A new notification bypassed my Do Not Disturb setting. A ghost message. Bring back what you took. Marianne, before the warrant finds you. No name. No return number. I looked at my house, the one paid for by Thorn Group bonuses. It looked like a trap. The porch light was off. The windows dark. If I stepped inside, I was giving them a stationary target. The SUV's headlights flicked to high beams for a split second. A predatory wink. They weren't there to arrest me yet. They were waiting for me to lead them to the one thing they feared I still had. I didn't turn into the driveway. I shifted into drive and felt the weight of the city pressing in. They hadn't just erased my job, they were trying to erase my exit. I didn't use the front door. I slipped through the garage, moving by muscle memory in the dark. Behind a stack of old paint cans, I peeled the duct tape from the back of a shelf. The hard drive felt cold. A jagged piece of my past I'd tried to bury. I opened my personal laptop, one Marcus's IT goons had never touched. The drive spun up with a low, vintage whine. The folder was labeled Project Athena. 10 years ago, the board had called it over-engineered and obsessive. They'd officially killed the project, or so they told me. But as I scrolled through the encrypted audit trails, the truth hit me like a physical blow. They hadn't killed Athena. They had cannibalized her. My code, the core kernel I'd written in this very garage, was now the nervous system of Thorn Group's entire logistics empire. It handled every shipment, every contract, every dollar. And then I saw the line of code that made my blood turn to ICE license _ status conditional. Valid only during author _ employment, the moment Marcus fired me. He hadn't just cleared his staff. He had accidentally revoked the operating license for his entire company. By law, the Thorn Group was now running on stolen property. A chat window snapped open on my screen. No username, just a blinking cursor. You finally looked at the foundation. Marianne. My heart hammered. I typed back, "Who is this?" "A friend who likes to watch empires fall." Marcus assumed you were too loyal to ever check the fine print. He was wrong. My phone buzzed on the workbench, vibrating against the wood. A location pin, 1 mile away. No message. I slammed the laptop shut. I wasn't just a fired executive anymore. I was a ticking time bomb inside their mainframe. They weren't hunting me to recover data. They were hunting me to force a signature before the system realized its heart had stopped beating. I had 30 minutes before the warrant went live. It was time to stop hiding and start negotiating. The legal folder hit the desk with a thud that echoed like a closing cell door. My lawyer, Elias, didn't look up. He traced the ink with a silver pen, his face a mask of professional dread. "This signature is a masterpiece," he whispered. "The slant, the pressure, it's almost you." Almost. I leaned in. The IP transfer appendix looked perfect, except for one microscopic flaw. The date, I realized. My voice cold? I was in London that day. 12 people can testify to it. "It's not just the date, Marianne." Elias tapped a specific clause. "This document only transfers derivative works. It doesn't touch your core kernel." He left a hole in the contract on purpose. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Marcus hadn't been sloppy. He'd been baiting a trap. He didn't want my silence, I said, the pieces clicking into place. He wanted me to find this. He wanted me to come to him, terrified, and offer to fix the contract in exchange for making the embezzlement charges disappear. "He's offering you a trade," Elias warned. "Your soul for your freedom. If you sign a clean version now, you're complicit in his fraud. If you don't, he triggers the arrest warrant." My phone buzzed a jagged vibration against the mahogany desk. "The clock is ticking. Marianne, stop digging before you find something you can't survive." I stared at my forged name. Marcus thought he knew my breaking point. He thought 20 years of corporate conditioning had turned me into a coward who would choose safety over the truth. "He thinks I'm negotiating," I said, standing up. My chair screeched against the floor, a war cry in a room full of whispers. "He's wrong. I'm not looking for a deal. I'm looking for a detonator." Elias looked at me, a flicker of genuine fear in his eyes. "Then you'd better move, because he isn't playing for your job anymore." He's playing for your life. Outside, the same black SUV was waiting at the corner. The hunt had evolved. The headline hit my screen before I could even hail a cab. VP Crowley under investigation for data theft. There were no facts. Just a pixelated photo of me and a series of anonymous sources. Within minutes, the system Marcus built began to swallow me whole. My banking app froze under review. My credit cards declined fraud alert. He wasn't just firing me, he was deleting my ability to exist in a capitalist society. I dropped my compromised phone into a trash can and bought a burner in a crowded pharmacy. Every person I passed felt like a witness. Every siren felt like it was for me. I checked into a motel that smelled of bleach and desperation. The moment the burner phone caught a signal, a text from my old protege appeared. Marianne, the firm just issued a memo. Anyone caught talking to you is terminated immediately. They're saying you're dangerous. I typed back, do you believe them? The 3 dots of a reply pulsed, then vanished. The silence was the loudest thing in the room. The burner phone rang. No ID. A voice, smooth as silk and cold as a Chicago winter, filled my ear. This doesn't have to be your life. Marianne, the bank account, the reputation, it all comes back with one signature. Just return what you stole tonight. I didn't steal anything. I whispered, my voice echoing off the stained walls. I'm just taking back my property. Property is a legal fiction, the voice countered. Reality is what we say it is, and right now, you're a ghost. The line went dead. I didn't sleep. I watched the door handle, realizing that Marcus wasn't just hunting me, he was waiting for me to break from the isolation. But he forgot one thing. Ghosts are the only ones who can walk through walls. I packed my bag. If they wanted a ghost, I'd give them a haunting. The headquarters of Thorne's biggest rival felt like a fortress. I was escorted to the top floor by a woman who treated me like a biohazard. Behind the final glass door sat Elena Thorne, Marcus's ex-wife, and his only true intellectual equal. She didn't rise. She just watched me with eyes that had seen through Marcus long before I had. The martyr returns, she said, her voice a low, elegant rasp. I assumed you'd be in a cell by now. I'm not here for sanctuary. Elena, and I'm not here to sell my code. She tilted her head. Then you're wasting my time. I'm here to give you the kill shot, I said, leaning over her desk. I know he used the Athena kernel to launder the 50 million. I have the digital fingerprints. You want a hostile takeover? I'm the only one who can unlock the vault. The room went tomb quiet. Elena's facade didn't crack, but her pupils dilated. He thought divorce meant I'd stop auditing him, she whispered. Sliding a tablet toward me, it showed the same red columns from the Chapter 1 execution. But why help me? What's your price? I don't want money. I want my life back, I replied, and I want to watch his face when he realizes the woman he erased is the one who turned out the lights. She studied me for a long, agonizing second. Then she reached out and shook my hand. Her grip was like iron. A word of advice. Marianne, don't miss. My burner phone shuddered. I looked down. A photo of my own front door. Wide open. Someone was inside my house. The alliance was signed, but the war had just followed me home. I stood in the motel shadows, my fingers hovering over the keys like a conductor before a symphony of ruin. When the burner phone rang, I didn't wait for him to speak. The Athena kernel is heartbeat sensitive. Marcus, I said, my voice unnervingly calm, and I just gave it an arrhythmia. Turn it off, Marcus hissed. He sounded frantic. The polished CEO mask finally melting. This isn't leverage. Marianne, it's arson. On my screen, the map of North America began to pulse. I hadn't crashed the system. I'd simply introduced a 3-second lag into every transaction. In high-frequency logistics, 3 seconds is an eternity. It was a digital chokehold. Sabotage is messy. I replied, this is just repossession. You think you're winning? Marcus's voice dropped to a sinister crawl. Check your messages. I have 2 men outside your mother's house in Evanston. They aren't there to deliver flowers. My heart skipped. A cold spike of adrenaline hitting my gut. My finger trembled over the execute command. This was the moment he expected me to break. He thought family was my weakness. He forgot it was also my reason. Then you should tell them to run, I whispered. Because if I hit enter again, the Thorn Group's tax shelters in the Caymans will auto-report to the IRS. You'll be bankrupt before your men even reach her front door. Silence. I could hear his ragged breathing. The sound of a man realizing he was holding a knife while I was holding a detonator. Pull them back. Marcus. Or we both burn. 10 seconds passed. 20. Then, a grainy video clip arrived on my phone, a black sedan peeling away from my mother's curb. This isn't over. He spat, and the line went dead. I didn't celebrate. I hit the key. The lag deepened. I wasn't just squeezing his throat anymore. I was draining the blood from his veins. The Thorn Plaza press room was a sea of flashbulbs and predatory silence. Marcus stood at the podium, his tailored suit of fragile armor against the rumors of system failure. Our infrastructure is secure. He lied, his voice echoing through the atrium. The recent glitches are the work of a disgruntled former employee, a woman who has clearly lost her grip on reality. I stepped from behind the velvet curtain. The room gasped. I didn't look like a woman who had lost her grip. I looked like the one who had finally found the handle. If I'm a ghost, Marcus, I said, walking toward him as 100 cameras pivoted like sunflowers. Then let's talk about what haunts your servers. He reached for his security radio, but I was faster. I didn't play a digital file. I placed an old-fashioned analog cassette recorder on the podium. Magnetic tape doesn't leave metadata. It can't be hacked. And it certainly can't be erased by a remote wipe. I hit play. Marcus's voice, cold and clinical, filled the hall. We'll pin the 50 million deficit on Crowley. She's loyal enough to take the hit. And by the time she figures out the IP transfers were forged, she'll be in a jumpsuit. Frame her first. The truth won't matter once she's discredited. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus's face turned the color of ash. That's a deep fake. He barked, his eyes darting toward the exits. AI-generated propaganda. I held up a tablet showing the live forensic validation from Elena's firm. Actually, Marcus, this is the Athena kernel's own integrity check. It verified your vocal frequency in real time. You spent 10 years telling the board the system was infallible. Are you calling it a liar now? The room erupted. Reporters surged forward like a breaking wave. Marcus stepped back, hitting the screen behind him, the one still displaying the red columns of my failure. I leaned in, my voice a whisper beneath the roar. You said you'd hang my photo in this hallway, Marcus, but I think they'll need the space for your indictment instead. He looked at his phone. The board had just issued a vote of no confidence. The empire hadn't just fallen, it had collapsed on top of him. The heavy oak doors of the boardroom finally swung open, exhaling a cold, metallic draft. The directors hurried out like rats from a sinking ship, avoiding my gaze as if my presence were contagious. Then came Marcus. He was stripped of his title, his access, and his arrogance. His expensive suit suddenly looked 2 sizes too big. He didn't walk, he drifted, escorted by 2 officers who treated him with the bored efficiency of a sanitation crew. We met at the exact center of the hallway, the spot where he had promised to hang my photo as a monument to failure. The officers stopped to verify a detail on the warrant. Marcus looked at the blank wall, then at me. His eyes were bloodshot, the pupils narrow with a desperate, lingering venom. You think this is justice, he whispered, his voice cracking like dry parchment. You've burned the house down just to kill a spider. Marianne, there's nothing left for you here. I didn't burn it. Marcus, I replied, stepping into his personal space, close enough to see the sweat on his brow. I just stopped holding up the ceiling for you. One of the officers clicked a pair of steel cuffs around his wrists. The sound was soft, almost musical, the final punctuation mark on a 20-year sentence. As they led him away, a technician stepped forward with a drill. He wasn't hanging a portrait. He was mounting a seized by federal authorities placard directly onto the wood. The hallway hadn't become my graveyard. It had become his crime scene. My phone vibrated. A message from the chairman. The board is prepared to offer you the interim CEO position. Name your terms. Please turn the system back on. I looked at the message, then at the retreating back of the man who had tried to erase me. The building felt lighter, but it also felt hollow. I didn't head for the boardroom. I headed for the elevator. The boardroom was a vacuum. No phones, no assistants. Just the remaining directors looking at me like I was a life raft in a hurricane. Name your price. Marianne, the chairman said, sliding a contract across the polished mahogany. CEO, full autonomy, a compensation package that makes Marcus look like an intern. Just turn the system back on. Save the firm. I didn't even touch the folder. I looked at the faces around the table, the same faces that had watched me get executed in the atrium without blinking. You're mistaken, I said, my voice steady enough to cut glass. I didn't come here to negotiate my return. I came to deliver the death certificate. The room went cold. What does that mean? The Athena kernel wasn't just a piece of software, it was my intellectual property. And an hour ago, I signed an exclusive, irrevocable license to your biggest competitor. Elena Thorne's firm now owns the engine that runs this building. The chairman's face went gray. That's corporate suicide. No, I replied. Standing up and smoothing my jacket, it's a market correction. You spent 20 years treating loyalty like a commodity you could buy and sell. You forgot that some things, once broken, stay broken. I walked to the door. No one moved. No one spoke. The power in the room had shifted so completely that the air felt thin. I stepped out of the Thorne Plaza for the last time. I didn't look back at the glass tower. I pulled the burner phone from my pocket and hit format. Here's the truth they don't teach you in business school. If a system only values you when you become a threat to it. You were never an employee. You were a hostage. I'm no longer in the building. I'm the one who walked away while it was still standing.